God put a mark on the damned that would let others know they are not to be killed. Anyone who harmed the damned would be punished 7 times over. The damned were hidden from God's presence and forced to live out their lives carrying out the punishment of their cursed bloodline. The sin pumped through the veins of one descendant to the next. All bore the same mark. I know that my family carries a cursed bloodline. We were made to face the damned. Our blood makes us special. Our bloodline attracts the damned and gives us the power to fight them. The hunt continues for the one that got away, but my mission beckons me forth. This feeling I have is getting worse. Something pulls me west. I must find out why. I am the last one of us left. The blood of my family runs through my veins, and no one can take that away from me. I am not alone. I am their hope. I promise you. No matter what, come hell or high water, or actual hell itself, I am through with running. Flores Park had better be ready for me.
Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. We are back with yet another episode of Rip and the Silverback. Got a lot of comic book stuff that we're going to be talking about today that I'm really excited for. We're going to have some fun. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, the Silverback himself. Ass man, what's up?
Good. I wouldn't normally say this, but this one just tickled me a little bit. Somebody on you when somebody like ats me in something where somebody said something about me or whatever, I just tend to ignore it. It's just wasted energy. And I just saw this one. This guy said, "Have you seen this?" And it was actually you and me. It's from Rip and the Silverback.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'll click on it. Yeah. So I clicked on it. It's this channel. It's got like, look, if you tell me what the name of the channel, ask me what the name of the channel is. Honestly, I can't fucking remember. But they had like 550,000 subs. So, decent sized channel. Right. I think that's bigger than a pair of us individually.
Yeah.
And the video was like 3 or 4 days old. It had like 3,000 views. And tough. I was like, is that because, my ego was immediately dented. I was like, is that
nobody cares about us?
Is that because it's me? So it's that's kidding. So look at the rest of the videos. They're all just shit. They're all like 2,000, 3,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, for a 5.5, 550,000 subscriber channel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But what got me and what made me click on in the first place was the title was something along the lines of Republicans give shitty take on probably some trans stuff. And I was like, well, I'm British.
And I'm not I've never voted for
like the most verbal libertarian.
Yeah. I've never voted for a Republican.
But that wasn't quite. I mean, that in itself was funny. What I found even more hilarious is on the link that the guy sent me, because they sent like a picture or a link or something. The fucking advert bar on the video was from the Rippaverse.
Yes, so they're working. Yes. Yes, and by the way, I do those myself, so I'd actually be congratulating myself. There, I've been doing a lot of market research. Obviously, I know a little thing or two about digital marketing. So them talking about us, obviously, that means that the ad placement, perfect, absolutely perfect. So I'm glad we got that confirmation. So if nothing else, when someone does click that for whatever reason, they'll at least be linked to the proper place where they can just check out some comics. It's fantastic. That's good.
Made me chuckle.
That's good. But man, a lot we're going to be discussing today is talking about, of course, the comic book industry. I do want to, of course, open up though with Bloodruth #1. We are in our final week of Bloodruth #1. It has hit some crazy milestones. This isn't up to date. I believe it's hit over $675,000 in total sales. Obviously, over 12,000 books sold. So thank you guys so much for that support. You're gonna want to get everything while you can. Books are set and on schedule as they always do by the last day, selling out. Black and white version. You saw the print numbers. Obviously, the beautiful. We just did a video. If you go to all of our social media, Rippaverse social media, you'll see that shiny Bloodruth cover, which looks absolutely insane. Shout out to Wagner for this. Did such a great job on it. But go grab those books while you can. It is the final week. Of course, we did just open up with Yaira #2 as well. So, of course, you can grab all that, but we're closing it down Bloodruth this week. And next month, we anticipate we'll let you know more concrete date, but next month it does look like Bloodruth will start shipping as well. We already have the books, but CGC and stuff, we need to get all those stuff back. Do I have? Damn, I should go grab the. Maybe I could get my wife to grab it, but I have the Rippaverse cup that you can get as part of this collection as well. Maybe I'll grab that and show that on stream. I'll text the wife here in a bit, but yeah, go grab that. We got Yaira 2 that's open as well, so go grab those for sure. We appreciate your continued support. But again, today is about just the general comic. We'll have another chance to talk about Rippaverse stuff. But we're talking about the general comic book industry today for sure. But as you guys may have heard, maybe not have heard, Bloodruth #1 it's doing well. We appreciate y'all, all the love that y'all have been showing for that. Yaira, we're moving into that. Things are speeding up. I need people to get used to this sped up because this probably isn't our last collection that's going to be dropped in January. Hint, hint. Maybe there's something else on the way. But get used to it. Stuff dropping, stuff fulfilling. That's going to be kind of our cycle here. It's just how it's going to work. We're a legitimate publisher. But speaking of publishing and everything that's going on with Diamond is what we're going to be talking about. For you guys that don't know, Diamond Distribution has been for a long time the dominant, not so much anymore, and we'll talk about why that's the case. But for a very long time, Diamond has been the #1 distributor. Now, that got broken up because of the pandemic. Lunar, as well as Penguin Random House. Marvel and DC basically went to them to distribute. They use this as an opportunity to distribute, okay, to someone else. Go to someone else as a distributor. So Diamond had some of the other guys, some of the bigger, smaller publishers, smaller, like not the big two, but they were still bigger. And of course, they had a lot of independent stuff, okay? Those have that started to get broken up as well, okay? That said, Diamond filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 11.
Administration, yeah.
Now, this doesn't mean that they're just closing down. I want to be very clear about that, but I do want to talk about the repercussions, and I do want to talk about what this means for some of the just really everybody in the comic book industry. But this is a letter that they sent out to everybody that basically uses Diamond, okay? This is what it says. Dear valued customer, I'm writing to share one of the most challenging messages of my career. And this is coming from the president of Diamond Distribution. Now, some people, and I remember posting about this, they said, I've never even heard of this. Now, it's not necessarily your job to. When you went to the comic book shop or whatever, you were just buying the book. But how that book got there, most times, if you had been collecting over the past, let's say prior to 2020, it went through Diamond. Your shop was buying it from Diamond or through their network. But he says, earlier today, Diamond made the difficult but necessary decision to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This step is intended to stabilize our financial foundation and protect the most vital aspects of our business. This decision was not made lightly, and I understand that this news may be as difficult to hear as it is for me to share. The Diamond leadership team and I have worked tirelessly to avoid this outcome, but the financial challenges we face have left us no other viable option. Chapter 11 will provide us the opportunity to restructure and address our financial obligations. This process will likely include the sale of key assets, which is interesting, of Diamond comic distributors. We have already received a commitment from Universal, of course, to purchase Alliance Game distributors, coupled with a signed letter of intent to purchase Diamond UK, which may impact ass. And we remain committed
to be buying fucking mainstream comics.
Well, that's also true. Committed to pursuing offers for all Diamond lines of business. What does this mean for you? I want to reassure you that with secure financing in place to support our operation, Diamond Comic Distributors is committed to continuing business as usual.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
What year was this letter written in? 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. This is the history of fucking Diamond since God knows when. For the last 15 odd years, there've just been a consistent financial shit.
Restructuring, shifting,
shifting, trying to sell off, blah, 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 refinancing, da, da, da.
Right. And they say our plan is to continue fulfilling orders in a complete and timely fashion, and we are working hard to minimize any disruptions to your orders. We'll be transparent as possible during this process, and we'll keep you informed of significant developments, which there will be more of those. And if you have some questions, blah, blah, blah. Basically, with Universal having that, I have committed to that, and as well as them explicitly stating that they are going to be looking for other aspects of their company and assets that are associated with Diamond to be basically sold off. So for sure, it's going to impact you. They can say that they're going to continue, which is the best thing for them to do, as usual, but that could absolutely be disrupted depending on who buys what and, what assets belong to who. So it's going to be a fundamental change. Okay. Fundamentally, it is going to be a change. And I think that's worth discussing. Now, the reason why I wanted the show is going to be heavy on this topic, because this means a lot, obviously, for who they distribute to, most of that being comic book shops. Now, if you don't mind me having the floor here for a little bit, because I got to
go for it. I
got to break.
I'll
break
just
a lot
see how
down.
my football team's doing.
Yeah, do that. Perfect. So I've been on record. There's a video that I did end up resharing, where I discussed a lot of this, where the economic illiteracy of the comic book industry, I think is the name of it, something like that. It never made sense, and it was always on a house of cards. Anybody that says that is lying. Okay. When it exists for so long, Az brought up a great point earlier when he said there's always been this constant shifting and moving stuff around. You're put under the illusion that it's working for a couple of reasons. It exists, right? And while that is the case, you were spoiled, and had it not been for who went through their own set of restructuring and everything, the big two, this whole thing would have collapsed a long time ago. It gave you the illusion that it was working when it was always on a house of cards in the first place. And it's not just pertaining to distribution. It's the industry at large. Okay. Right. Because none of it ever made sense. In fact, Marvel and DC being associated with who they had been is not just, Disney. They had been going through. I mean, obviously, look, let's take a step back. A lot of people forget in the 90s, Marvel went bankrupt or was about to.
Yeah.
Okay. It was 97, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Toy Biz kind of stepped in, Pearl Mutter, all those guys saved their asses. So that wasn't that long ago. It's in most of you guys' lifetimes. Okay. We know at Warner, their constant restructuring, right? Once between that, AOL, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It was a lot of restructuring that they've done over the years, as well. And DC's been maybe tied to it longer, but if they had not been attached to these mega corporations, the comics, I'm not speaking to other things, would not probably existed. Okay. I think for a long time, it made sense for them to stick around. It was a source of material for them to do other stuff with that they could make money off of. Right. But don't for once think that a lot of these comics have been profitable. Okay. For the publisher, that is. Maybe there are outliers, the Batmans of the world for sure. But for the most part, it's not like they're just rolling in dough versus what they're spending versus what they're getting back. It's just that it had been tied to this mega corporation for a very long time. 2020 happens. The whole pandemic thing goes down. Those guys use this as an opportunity to kind of go do some different stuff. Okay. So Diamond for a very long time was the only company that basically everybody went to in order to have their books distributed. Okay. That recently changed, but it was like that for a very long time. So they act as a middleman.
20 odd years.
Yeah, it's been like that for a couple of decades, right?
Yeah.
Where everything, top to bottom, it went through them, right? So you had these, again, acting as the middleman. You see the cover price, and this for a lot of guys, yeah, you already knew that, but for most guys, a lot of guys don't understand this, right? You spend $5 on a comic or however much, $3.99, $4.99, whatever, right? That's that retail price. Okay. The retailer is not the customer. And this may sound like it doesn't make sense, but follow me. The retailer is not technically the customer of the publisher. Or actually, that's sort of inaccurate. You're as the buyer are not the customer.
The retailer is the customer technically,
right?
We are it's a middleman to the end user,
right? So
to dismiss the customer who actually purchases the comic from the local comic book store,
right,
would be fucking retarded.
Yes, yes. So you're buying these as you're buying these comics from the retailer. Marvel's already, or whoever's distributing it, they're getting their cut through the distribution sort of market. You have distributor, you got publisher, distributor, retailer, then you. You're like the third or fourth hand to get the book, right? There's a lot of middle folk in it, and when you consider that how much money it costs us to produce these comics, again, they hadn't been making money like that anyway, right? That said, that was the setup for a long time. They did not want to adjust. Technology changed, and previews, the newsstand. Would you agree with me as that is not the primary way people are finding out about comics anymore? It's the internet.
No. Yeah. Well, oh God, is it even the internet? I don't even know. Well, it depends how you're marketing yourselves. I mean,
that's also true.
If I just continue the way that I'm going at the moment, I don't have a clue what DC and Marvel are up to.
Well, that's a good point, right?
You know, I know fully well what the Rippaverse is up to.
There you go.
But in terms of like, even if I didn't see a post online from DC Marvel, how the fuck do I know what Dark Horse is up to? What Image is up to? IDW. Am I going to go to Bleeding Cool? Fuck off. You know, am I going to be buying an industry magazine? No. So, you know, I think they're a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not interested in actually marketing to the end user.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's going to kind of go, you're going in the direction that I want to go and take the sort of the conversation, right? Because out of this, right, with Diamond, like I said, as far as a lot of these independents through their preview system and everything, they were going through Diamond. So some of these guys are like, oh shit, what do we do? Right. I want to say this because someone brought up and like when I mentioned this publicly, and I've been saying this for years. So people that follow me know this has been my position even prior to the pandemic, when I would say, look, as the industry's changing, newsstand is not the discovery method anymore. Not for the end customer, right? Maybe for the shop owner, but not for the end customer. The guy that buys it knows what they're going to buy generally. They're not going for discovery unless they're maybe looking at some back issues to see what you kind of got in stock. But their discovery isn't the newsstand. They usually, for the most part, know about it by the way of the internet or whatever some other means. Right? It's not how it traditionally was. Okay. Nobody adjusted to that for some reason. And I sat back and I was like, well, how does this make sense? Right? You see that people have these mini computers in their hands and they're getting this information a lot differently than they had been in the past. Why is nobody adjusting? Right? They felt maybe they didn't have to, and maybe the convenience part of it from the shops, which is where I'm going here in a bit, they got spoiled, okay? Because with this refusal to adjust, you have folks like, well, what about the shop owners? This has been my argument. If we're going to talk about the industry, and Gary's talked about this before as well, and the direction that it's gone, the fact that we absolve shop owners from having any sort of responsibility in it is quite interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. That said, adapt or die is the way of life. Okay. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's you got to adapt. You got to make an adjustment or you end up like Blockbuster. Okay. Everybody has to do it. This isn't something that is unique to the comic book industry. Okay. So my position, because you brought up, for example, with marketing, okay, why that everybody felt, okay, it was neat. It was by neat, I'm meaning, hey, I can go to one entity, Diamond, get all my books to supply my shop as far as newly released material, okay? No matter how screwed up it is, as far as if you want to call it a monopoly, whatever, I don't really care. It got to the point, and some of you guys will feel me on this, because they're still out there, which is interesting. If it didn't go through Diamond, they wouldn't buy it for the shop. No matter how popular that comic was, no matter how much intrigue there was by it, they would not get it. Now, their hands were kind of forced recently, because really the only reason that they went to Penguin and Lunar is because the big dogs went there, right? So it forced them to make an adjustment. Now you went from one maybe major distributor in one place that you would get your place your orders through to three. Okay.
And I don't even think Diamond are distributing DC and Marvel anymore, right?
Not anymore. No. That's what I'm saying. Lunar and Penguin. There may be some exceptions. I don't know how that graphic novel stuff is set up, but yes, for the most part, Lunar Distribution as well as Penguin Random House, those guys are the distributing for the big two. That is the only reason why they said, okay, maybe we'll go to someone else other than Diamond. That's what a lot of shop owners do. There's still a lot of hard-headed shop owners right now, but still will only go through those three. They got spoiled. Now, I think it's crazy. I've worked in other industries, and I think it's absolutely insane that you only went through one vendor. And man, was that cute. You went through one vendor to supply your entire shop. That was it. No other industry is it like that, right? For the most part, there may be some exceptions, but when people are trying to house stuff, they got this vendor that they're dealing with that distributes through this distributor, that distributor. And yes, you obviously, as the owner of that company, if you are storing other people's products, you're going through all of those distributors, or you're paying someone else to manage that. Shop owners, unfortunately, a lot of them have said, I'm just going through these guys. If I'm not seeing it through their network, I will not buy it. I think they did themselves in to the point to where now, there was someone that just posted this to me not too long ago. Eric, what you're proposing is that they go through 10 other, maybe if They want to keep their pulse on the industry. What are you're suggesting that they do their jobs? You're suggesting that they either do the research their own. What are the hot comics? Who's distributing them, right? And actually having to actually do market research to stay alive. I'm like, yeah, that's what every other industry does. You keep your hand on the pulse of the industry.
Well, imagine if you could only send a parcel through one distributor.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
It'd be insane.
But local comic book stores did find another distributor throughout the years. They found the distributor of Funko Pops. They found a distributor of more geek orientated materials for the store.
Because that's how those are the ones that were adapted
anymore. Yeah,
that's what I'm speaking to as those guys, and this is why I want to make sure I make that differentiation there, because those guys are the ones that are adapting. Right? They are the ones that said we can't eat off of this, right? Sure, we can make a little money off of maybe some of these newer comics, but I can't keep the shop alive doing this. So I'm going to do some other things. I'm going to bring in some other stuff. And yeah, Diamond does have, I think, a wing that does some distribution stuff in like the games network. But yeah, you bring up a great point. Those guys are having to go through multiple distributors to supply their shop. Why some other comic shop owners absolutely refuse to do any sort of research and basically want to have it put in their face by Diamond, and they won't order from them. It sounds harsh when I say that maybe they are going to suffer the same fate that a lot of other comic book shops do, or you have to make an adjustment. And I'm not saying this just from my perspective. Every comic shop, including one of the biggest online retailers in like mycomicshop.com, right? If we give them comics, they sell well or sell out. So it's not just from my perspective. There are some other guys that are maybe doing it stuff independent that are sales, right? That if you put it in your store, you can make money off of it because there will be buyers for it. But maybe they don't go through Diamond as. Maybe they don't go through Penguin Random House. Maybe they don't go through Lunar. Maybe they go through something else, somebody else. It is on you as the shop owner, as every other industry, to get your vendors in order, do some research in order to stay alive. But for so long, these guys that got spoiled going to one entity, now maybe three, but for previously going to one entity that they felt like, well, I kind of know what people want. It's in here. I just order it, bam, and I get it. My argument has been, as publishers have had to make adjustments to this solely newly forming like market, they have to do the same. And I don't think it's harsh to say you get what you deserve if you choose not to adjust and you find that that is not feasible, or rather that cannot help sustain your company. But forcing everybody, or feeling like, because that's what really happened, right?
Yeah.
You try to effectively force all of these people, big and small companies, right, to go through this one fucking entity for your own convenience. And that was the attraction of it all. It was like, well, I can just go one place, go to one entity, basically, maybe two or three, but one entity for the most part, to get all of my comic books. And my argument has always been that's fucking made no sense when it happened. And it especially makes no sense now. And I think what should happen, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, that local comic book shops, if they want to still exist in 2025, they're going to have very proactive owners, or paying people to be proactive on their behalf, to really understand that it's not just what's coming from the distributors that you're comfortable with, where exists material that you can sell. It might not go through Diamond. Because me, I would say, for example, if I were, and I'm just saying this as we're the independent company, we distribute the comics ourselves, right? At best, I would work with someone's network, but I wouldn't have someone else distribute my comics, because why would I do that? Right? That's giving someone else money, right? And cutting out when I effectively already cut out the middleman, right? So you can work with someone's network. Like, so if I was working with someone's network and they're like, okay, we have this network where people are used to go through, you can utilize it. You can use it to put it in the eyes of maybe these shops, but this book still come from us, whatever. But thinking that, okay, I got to depend on you to get it in the shop. You can't anticipate that a lot of newly independent comics performing, especially in the age of the internet, are going to go through traditional means. For what? It means less money for them. So my argument is that they gotta adjust, and if they don't adjust, they die. Am I harsh in anticipating that just like publishers have had to adjust, just like even customers have had to adjust and diversify, that they do it too?
Well, no, because we're seeing a lot of comic book shops fall by the wayside because of what they've been ordering.
Yeah, they can't sell it.
How the ordering's happened. So yeah, if you can't sell the product, what do you think is going to happen? And it was so bizarre that in the retailers conference, whatever you called it, when people spoke up and said we can't sell this shit,
right?
And they were shouted down. But that's what happens when ideology takes over business. I mean, you can attribute it to TV, film, and everything that's going on. Video games, the whole job lot. When the business acumen side goes, then you're dealing with fucking window lickers here now. So yeah, if you don't want to adapt, if your company doesn't want to adapt, goodbye. There's already like precious little local comic book stores left as is.
Right.
And now exactly what is the comic book shop nowadays? Because it seems to house a fraction of comics in comparison.
Good point. They're having to depend on other things. So they got to adjust. Everybody, and I'm not trying to be harsh. I say this, we have our partners, okay? Rippaverse has our partners. We have shops that we've worked with that will buy from us. They sell. That's why they keep buying from us, okay? So I'm not saying this speaking on just my own behalf, okay? By any means. I'm just saying that I had the advantage with starting the Rippaverse to analyze all of this shit. And you guys remember very vividly, there's a lot of things that I've done that people said I should not have done, right? Just because it wasn't traditional means. Not because it made sense or didn't make sense. It was because, well, it didn't go through the traditional channels, right? Or what they envision a comic book shop, a comic book publisher should be doing. But that was an advantage to me because I could say, okay, what if the process works? What can I make sense of versus what of the process I can't? And if I could not make sense of it, I will not do it just because everybody else is doing it, right? I don't care what everybody else is doing. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, okay? But the reason I bring it up is because that's kind of in a similar adjustment that other guys are going to have to make as publishers, and they already had, right? We see what happens, what's going on in crowdfunding and other non-traditional means that people have kind of figured out. Okay, I can do other things to sell my books, and it's not just exclusively to crowdfunding. It's traditional in the sense that they're selling directly to customer, and I think that's really the guys that are thriving right now, as new publishers are doing. They're selling directly to customers instead of selling B2B, which is what Diamond is essentially. It's selling. It's all the B2B, and nobody made an adjustment to try to alter that. So everybody has to adjust or die, but that doesn't just apply to apply to publisher. That also applies to shop owners. And I don't think that I'm being harsh by expecting them to adjust as well. Look, the Western industry, we all know, is fucked. Okay. By and large, there are outliers. There are people that have seen success. We've seen success, but that you can't sit up here and pretend like that represents the entire Western market. It doesn't. It doesn't, right? Like it's an outlier, right? You have younger folks, especially. And by younger, I'm not talking about like teenagers. I'm talking guys that are in their 20s now. They went through the whole, they're like manga guys, they're anime guys more than they are Western stuff. Western new shit, it is very, very difficult to make that sell. And I commend all of those, the Iconic Comics guys, people like that have been able to figure out what works. Okay. And big shout out to Gary. I see y'all just right. I guess the Nooner just ended. So big shout out to all of y'all for coming by. We're talking Diamond distribution, talking comic books and everything. So welcome everybody from the Nooner. Shout out. Hope you guys had a lot of fun over there You're coming in on a fantastic conversation because we're talking business. Everybody type business in the chat right now. We're talking business, but we're also talking just general comic book stuffs. Okay. But yeah, I have to ask you, Jeff Lee, as a guy that's been a customer for as long as you have, and you've seen these comic book shops. Look at all those businesses in the chat. You see the comic book shops. You've seen a lot of them come and go. How far did you say like the closest one to you is now?
Oh, well, apparently there used to be 3 near to where I am. None of those exist anymore. If I want to go to a comic book store now, nearest place would be Leeds.
Okay.
So I would have to travel, 30 odd miles or so to go to my local comic book store. Which is
very local,
exceedingly local, inconvenient. And even then, it would be sneak diss, I don't know. But even then, it would be a Traveling Man or a Forbidden Planet, which are more commercialized stores as opposed to local comic book stores now. Don't tend to have any variety of back issues whatsoever. That in itself is becoming a niche store, one that will have a substantial backlog.
That's a market, right? Big market.
So if you're going to Forbidden Planet, you're going in and there's like one small section of new releases, and it's usually Harley Quinn farting on Captain Marvel's lesbian's clitoris or something. So it's just like, why would I even, what? Who's this for? And then you look around the store and there's like 58 aisles of manga. And then there's like 16 dedicated to Pride, which are fully stocked at all times, covered in fucking dust, while flags are being draped everywhere. Man buns ahoy, blue beards on dudes, and hashtag Allah, I'm an ally. And he just sort of, what the fuck industry is this anymore? Yeah. Who are we trying to sell to? Who are we trying to appeal to? Certainly ain't a comic book enthusiast. So I don't know. It was. I've recently been abroad, and I was fortunate enough when I was abroad to actually go to a couple of comic book stores, and they actually had decent selections of back issues.
Okay,
and it's like, holy shit. I need to travel halfway around the fucking world for this. The huzzahs. Because in the UK, if I want to do back issue hunting, I got to do it online. I got to do it online at specialist online warehouse, distributors of back issues. But I'm the kind of guy that when I was collecting comics, when I started collecting comics, pretty much every comic book store you would go into, boxes upon boxes of back issues dating back, I don't know, 15, 20 years or.
Right.
Nowadays, you'd be lucky.
Well, again, that brings me, or kind of, it speaks to the point, okay, that's a market. These guys have to adjust, and a lot of shops have, investing in that, the back issues. Diversifying kind of what they sell, because gone are the days they could just eat off of that stuff. It's unfortunate, but it's a harsh reality, and I just do not see anybody starting a new business in like a comic book shop and thriving off of just selling new releases, unless they are getting very creative and doing, again, what I suggest they do, and trying to find, and they're not all Marvel, they're not all DC, no, but trying to find other, and they're not all going through their distribution, but trying to find those that they can sell, right? I think that's their way. That's the only way out of it. Otherwise, this
dude,
is what
you got Gail Simone writing the fucking X-Men.
Well, the content problem is, yeah, there's nothing they could do about that. But that's the thing that I'm saying. I think a lot of folks have been spoiled. They've been able to eat off of the big two. But what happens when the big two aren't doing what they were in the past, as far as the numbers that they're able to draw? You got to make the adjustment, right? But again, there are those that's all they'll sell.
Yeah, because the only way that they've seen any success,
right,
is by the constant resetting to issue 1.
Oh yeah, they've done themselves in. Recently, the variant problem is another one, right?
Oh, well, the variant problem is a big problem because you're selling multiple copies to the same person,
right?
Potentially just speculators or just collectors that will just
they're not actually readers.
Yeah. So who's actually reading this stuff? Absolute Batman, that shifted 400,000 units.
Yeah.
Absolute Batman #2, it shifted 60% less. So already there was a substantial drop off. It was just coming across as a bit of gimmick, and now it's 4 issues in. You're not really hearing anything about Absolute Batman anyway. So it was a short-term gimmick. It's not a long-term solution to do this kind of stuff. The New 52, then it went into whatever it was, and then it went into Rebirth, and all kinds of shit was just over the place. You don't have the talent. You don't have the seminal pieces being produced anymore. You don't have that story. You don't have, where's that X-Men story? What, a gala with Kevin Feige because they all want to signal to the boy, hey, I'll get a credit on a movie. There's nothing being written anymore that people are going, holy shit, look what Batman just did. Look what Superman just did. Look what Wolverine just did. Now Wolverine's just saying to Laura, hey, Laura, you call yourself Wolverine as well because I'm a fucking male feminist or something and I'm sucking Cyclops' cock. It's fucked. They've fucked everything. They've fucked all the characters. They've made sure that there's nothing to invest in. So you've got a whole plethora of history of these wonderful fucking characters created by amazing creators throughout decades upon decades. They're all now sucking each other's fucking dicks. They're worthless. And they're saying to comic book fucking shops, here, sell our book.
Yeah, but that's the part that they do kind of get, I don't want to say screwed, but that's what I'm saying. It goes both ways because you're totally right. They're giving you something that's very difficult to sell. Okay, it is extremely difficult, and then when you are selling it, you're having selling it on a gimmick. It's, oh, this is another #1. Oh, this is this the Uber. I purchased 50 of these, and I got this special variant, right? So there's not that many of them around. It's all gimmicky. It's not, oh, these people that come by the shop are actually enthusiastic and interested in the work, right? And if you don't have that, it's very, very difficult to thrive. But it's not like you anticipate that a lot of them, and you mentioned a great point where it's like, yeah, those that are like, I can't sell this, if they do speak out, or when they do, they get shunned. Okay. And that's unfortunate. But I also don't think it's like, okay, it's like, what came first, chicken or the egg, or is everybody just a part of this really shit process? I'm gonna do something real quick. Let me see if I can pull this video up because I want people to be able to see. I want people to see this because I did a video. We can watch it because I remember doing this video, and I don't even know if Az has seen this, but I did this video back when, and I may have to change my audio to make sure that it's coming through. I will. Let me do that real quick. But I did this when the whole bullshit of like with IDW was going down, right? So this is when I did that. Let me see. Can you hear this? As IDW Publishing lost one.
No, I can't. Yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna watch this, guys, because there's some information in here that I just want people to understand about just the comic book industry that I don't think most people understand, and how economically nonsensical it has been for so long. So we're gonna watch this because it kind of flew under the radar, but just check it out. $1.28 million this last quarter. As reported by ICV2, they've had lower sales but higher expenses, which of course is a recipe for disaster. Keep in mind, a year ago, this same quarter, they lost almost $600,000. So they've been bleeding money as of late. This was talking about, I don't know if people remember, I know we may have talked about it on the show, what was going down with IDW over a year ago with some of their, I mean, we've talked about it before. If they went away tomorrow morning,
right now, nobody would be surprised.
We'd be like, oh, well, that was inevitable.
Yeah.
Despite the sales being down, their printing costs have gone up drastically. Had it not been for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles books like The Last Ronin or a Sonic title or two, this company would be done. But one of the things that I think gets slept on the most when it comes to the modern day comic book publishing, that's the means of distribution. Almost all of the sales are from the direct market. According to IDW, 72.7% of their sales are through their distributor and 15% are from Scholastic. Most publishing companies are going to have similar breakdowns. This means that you, as the reader, are not the actual customers. This is going to aggravate some people, but I'm right on this. The traditional way of comic book sales is based on an archaic model.
So many people got mad at me when I said that. And I think as stuff starts to crumble, I'm not saying this to hype myself up and like, hey, I'm doing a victory lap. I was right. I just wish people would actually listen to what I'm saying, not the messenger, not the fact that you don't want me to be right. And by the way, this is well over a year ago when I did this video. This is before the whole Diamond bankruptcy thing. It never made sense. And I'll explain everything in this video, but it never made sense. And I need people to understand that I care a lot about this industry, right? I wouldn't have, invested $300,000 of my own money to get my comic book company off of the ground. Okay. If I just was in this thing to grift and not give a shit. But it has been on a house of cards at best. Either way, the foundation was faulty and it was bound to happen.
Series that I'll be doing soon that's titled Making Money in Comics. So this is a great time to go through this. But I don't think that the average comic book reader even understands where the actual money is or who's making it. Most seem to think that if you go to your local comic book shop and purchase, let's say, a Spider-Man book, Marvel is getting paid for it or getting a percentage of it or something like that. And that's just not how it works. In the direct market, 3 handlers of that book exist before you even buy it. You got the publisher, you got the distributor, and you got the retailer. The direct market setup allows for a network between those 3. And this is currently how the vast majority of comic books are moved. The publisher prints the book and supplies it to the distributor. The retailer buys it from the distributor, and the distributor ships the books to the retailer. The publisher, distributor, and retailers are not charities. They're all trying to operate this business with the intention of making profit. So with the decline of comics, does this model even make sense? I think this is a question worth exploring. Much like many other industries, sometimes something that has been done for decades remains the status quo. And it's not because it's logical, rather because everybody is just going through the motions and it's familiar. For a long time, Diamond comic distributors control.
Obviously, I'm about to explain that. I'll rewind a little bit. I'm about to explain that. But I think that's what I think. People think familiarity with something means that it works. And just because something is means that it's that way because it is effective and efficient. Not all the time. You can argue that even most of the time that's the case, but not all the time is that the case. Okay. Just because something exists. And then when you really start to, peel back those layers, you start to realize, well, wait a minute, that financial foundation was always faulty, right? It was always faulty. It was never like everybody was making money and it was all good. That wasn't the case.
Through the motions and it's familiar. For a long time, Diamond comic distributors controlled the entire game. Marvel, DC, and every other major publisher went through them. Some people call this a monopoly, and I can see why this setup could be attractive. It's because it's a one-stop shop. Retailers only had to manage one login and a direct point of contact. They could see the previews and purchase the books for just about any title they wanted. This also allows publishers to kind of gauge the enthusiasm for a specific title if they're basing that on how many books the retailers want. And they certainly took advantage of that. Things like incentive variants became the norm, where among their dozens of variant covers for any given title or issue, if a retailer purchases a certain amount of the issue, they get that rare variant cover, and they can, of course, upsell that. When Diamond controlled the entire industry, we were able to get some sales numbers, but those sales are not to readers. They're sales to retailers. Keep in mind what I just said about the incentive variants. So even if those books rotted on the shelves, that's still considered a sale. Nonetheless,
and that's what we've talked about it a million times, but a lot of people don't understand that part of it, right? In that the sales numbers that we have access to or had access to, they weren't necessarily point of sales. There has been some data with participating comic shops that have been able to, like, where they offer their sales data. But those numbers that we were, like, from Comic-Con that we were getting from a long time ago, those were shops buying it from Diamond, or through Diamond's network. So a sale was a sale. And even if they bought 10 of those copies, let's say a comic book shop bought 10 Miss Marvel's number 3s, right? And nobody bought them. They couldn't even give them away. Sales. It's 10 sales. Yeah, it's still 10 sales. That's how that data is read to us. Okay, it's still a sale regardless. And I think most people don't get that. So when we're trying to compare numbers and we're looking at these different things, and people are like, well, they were selling this and they're selling this much, and it's like, well, no, that was what they were selling to the shops. Nobody actually knows how much these were selling. And then I remember I used to do old videos as, like, back in the gap, where I would be at the shop and I'd be showing these people, like, my local comic shop has like 20 of these damn things. Nobody's touched them. Yeah. They're just there. It's 20 books sold.
And just imagine that just as coup hit, when we're getting those final Comic-Con numbers, things like Detective Comics was shipping. Now, we don't know how many sold to the end user, but it was shipping like 32,000. Superman, Action Comics was 29,000. And you're just like, what? These are the shipping numbers. So how many sales are off those 60%?
Don't know.
Is it selling like 20,000? And it's easy.
Again, when you look at the numbers, it's a lot worse. And however bad you think that it is, it's a lot worse. But trust me, I'm going to explain some stuff that I think a lot of people don't understand.
It was at least some sort of gauge, despite it not being entirely accurate. Now Marvel and DC use two other distributors in Penguin Random House and Lunar Distribution. So now you have a big three in distribution, and we have no idea what these sales are because none of them, including Diamond, make their sales public.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever know ever again as what these comics are selling. I don't think we'll ever get that information. They may do what they've done. I think they did it. Miss Marvel sells 1 million copies. Like, they'll put it like in a in a comic, like on a page, right, as an ad or something like that. Maybe, but I don't think we'll ever get like reports. I think those days are done. I just don't. I don't think we'll ever get that information. And it's to be fair, why would they? Why would they? Why would they let us know what it is?
Why they let you know how badly the industry is fucking
seriously
doing?
Like that, and they. What sucks for them, and I'm not saying I feel for them. I'm just saying you can imagine how that sucks because they got to compare themselves to themselves, right? And that's what everybody else is going to do if they were to put those public numbers up. So because we know what they used to ship, right? So unfortunate.
Streamlined so one can understand the benefit of the direct market setup. It just makes it easier for those involved, especially those retailers. But economically, with the growth of technology, does this model make sense? One of the benefits of the direct market setup was discovery. This benefited both major publishers and independent ones. They could get eyes to a brand new property, so retailers could take that risk in buying that unproven property that some customers could then see on the stand and maybe they purchase. Through previews, this impact still exists in some capacity, but you're kidding yourself if you think it's anywhere near as powerful as what it was decades ago.
And my argument there, just to clarify that, I'm saying that people don't discover new comics the same way that they did 2 decades ago. It used to be people will go to the local comic book shop, browse, right? It used to be newsstand. When we were growing up, that was how it was. That's how we learned about this sort of stuff.
That's how I bought my first comic, newsstand.
Exactly, right? Those days are done. And I'm not saying if you put a comic on a newsstand that it would say, no, I'm not saying that by any means. I'm just saying that people get information a lot differently. It's not the same way that it was many, many years ago. And that's due to the technology. You don't think about it because we're so used to it. But this is a mini computer that we all have in our pockets, right? Like everybody is so connected. And they know what's happening. They know when it's happening. They have their favorite creators that are maybe talking about it, spreading the news on it. That's in their pocket. This fundamentally changed everything. Dude, it changed how people market it. It changed everything. Unfortunately, a lot of what the comic book industry has done they haven't adjusted to that. They're still operating as if. And there's still even aspiring creators that are operating as if it's the same way. Discovery is on the newsstand, and it's not.
Take the MCU, right? Take the success of the Iron Man films, Captain America films, Avengers movies, etc. How many comic book stands did you see at the cinema?
0.
How many? Okay. How many comic books then did you see on the counters to be sold or even taken?
Not one time. You get a popcorn bucket before you got a comic.
Wouldn't you say that would be an absolute prime demographic?
I would say, if you knew what you were doing.
To market to, if you knew what the fuck you were doing. And now that's gone now because you can't even get people in to see one of these.
Yeah, that can't. You had to strike while the iron was hot there for sure. But that's why it did. Look, was there an odd chance that from the speculator standpoint, if Miles Morales is getting a new show or if he's getting a new whatever, that those of us that have his original appearances were going to be able to flip those? Absolutely, right? That said, you didn't really see, it was, let me say, statistically insignificant, the increases. And this is why, and some of this has to do with their own doing, okay? Because there's zero connection almost between, unfortunately, for a lot of these characters and their comic book counterparts, right? Right. So that's their own doing, right? It's like, why on earth would you have, and instead of going the manga and anime route where you keep it as accurate as you realistically can, instead of having 75 different versions of the character existing, that way, if I see a movie and I like the movie and I want to go to the source material from what that movie draws inspiration from, I'm reading the same character, not who the fuck is this? The race has changed, gender's changed, nothing's the same. Like, what am I looking at? But there wasn't a true increase in, like, okay, with this mass, I mean, you're talking, these guys were crapping out $1 billion films, guys, but on average, it's not like the comic industry came up with it. You saw the movies going this way on the upward trajectory. You saw the comics going the opposite way, which shows that someone wasn't taking advantage of it, right? There wasn't really a true connection there. And this is an argument that I've made for very long, right? And like I said, which I will mention here, and going like to the history of both of these companies as far as the big two are concerned, it became very obvious they were more They're worried more about making money in other in other like fields, right? Off of the characters and not the comics. So they were okay with taking losses. I think in a lot of cases they were treating it as loss leaders, right? Because outside of Batman and all those, it's very hard. It's very difficult for them to make money off of that stuff. But it could serve as, hey, we can get some characters out there and maybe we can test and do some whatever stuff. But I explained a lot of that stuff here.
The internet is now the newsstand. Are there customers that discover a new book just browsing at their local comic book shop? Of course. But most of them know exactly what books they want, when they're coming out, and what they're going to put on their pull list. I
can speak for myself when I say that, when I said that. And I was looking as I was doing this video, remembering my own habits before I said, okay, I just can't keep. I'm spending hundreds of dollars I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I already knew for the most part what I was grabbing and what I was having put on my pull list. And I was talking to the the associates as well as the owner of my local comic book shop at the time. Okay, put this on there. But it wasn't like I was like, hey, I saw this on the shelf. What the hell is this? Let me go buy it. It's just, as I prefaced it here, is there a chance that there are some people like that? Yes. But that does not represent the vast majority of buyers. They already know what they're getting, right? Because they're getting their source of information for it existing in the first place in a much different way than they were in years past. It's just different.
Information they got on the internet is the new newsstand now.
Yes, I believe that.
Retailers may benefit from the discovery if they aren't perpetually online and they just want to run their shop. But through that direct market setup, it's not really the benefit of the readers. What the retailers offer to them that is most valuable in this day and age is the culture that's centered around going to your local comic book shop and paying the cover price without any sort of shipping fees. Don't get me wrong. This is incredibly valuable and should be acknowledged. But what I do think is largely overstated is the discovery aspect of this streamlined direct market when it comes to the readers. Many independents are so itching to get their books in stores because they foolishly think that the current customers are operating the same way they did 30 years ago.
So this is what we just talked about, right? Where we're like that there hasn't really been an adjustment made, but there are a lot of up and comers and maybe even people that were formerly of the industry that are trying to do like maybe existed in mainstream and now trying to do their own independent stuff, going about it through traditional means. And I think that is a mistake. I really do. And I say that because you're not dealing with the same market.
No, but okay. Let me pose this to you.
Yeah.
Would they still be doing it if they didn't have the sugar daddies?
No. I mean,
remember, these are you're talking about the group of people within the industry who are saying that we shouldn't even be making comics for customers. We should be making comics for the corporations to try and pull potential stories for movies in the future.
Hollywood films and shit. Yep.
That's the mentality of the industry. That's the mentality. Now, that's an industry, of course, that realizes it's fucked and broken. And the person who said that knows they shouldn't even have a job here. They don't deserve to have a fucking job here. But this is the industry. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it's absolutely broken, and we ain't got a fucking clue how to fix it. So that's where it is with the comic book industry. So they're the complete polar opposite. Yeah. So it's kind of like somebody who's sat at a job, winging it, day in, day out. They're coming in, they're clocking out, they're coming in, they're clocking out. And they're just shitting themselves that one day somebody from upstairs is going to come down and go, can you tell me what you actually do? And they'll be like, I just sit here. That's all I do. I just sit. I don't do anything. Because that's the amount of worth that person has for the fucking comic book industry. I mentioned earlier. You got Gail Simone writing the X-Men. She's fucking dog shit. You know, she's the only thing she's ever done in her career is had a mid Birds of Prey run, which is mid as fuck.
Oh, it was okay, man. It was serviceable.
But it's been built off Chuck Dixon's back.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck, absolutely. You're right.
So without Chuck Dixon establishing that, taking those characters, making them fucking cool again. You know, Black Canary wasn't fucking cool when Chuck Dixon took that over, you know? Huntress is all floating all over the place. Oracle was a good character, but Chuck took her to another level. You know, Oracle got the success that she had as a character predominantly due to Chuck fucking Dixon.
No.
Right? And ever
You're not
since
wrong.
then,
You're not wrong.
and that's a person that's not Chuck, but Gail's a person that's slimed her way into the industry with the whole fridging bollocks and constantly criticizing men within the industry. Oh, you need to divert, you need to have more women in, blah, blah, blah. And you didn't do shit. And now it's just a bunch of people that are too frightened of their own fucking shadows, too frightened of the people in the industry, Whisper Network, all those fucking people. Because, you know, there's now body counts going on. You know, we've seen what's happened with men within the industry, having their careers ended. We saw that exodus a few years ago, 2018 to Substack. We saw them all go. They didn't get anywhere with Substack, so some of them came back again.
Nowhere, man. That's crazy how they went nowhere.
But when they left to try and see if the grass was greener on the independent side, they had no idea how to market themselves.
Facts.
I like Sean Gordon Murphy's work. I do like his work. But my God, that Plot Holes was a fucking disastrous campaign. Where has it even been shipped? I don't even know. But that Plot Holes was a complete fucking utter. This was a guy who was the pinnacle of the industry at the time. He was the guy.
He was the guy.
And what he did 300,000.
I think around there, yeah, like maybe just under 300,000.
It's like they're almost embarrassed to try and market themselves as if they're ashamed. But did he see anyone in the industry pushing any of that? Nothing. They have no clue how to market themselves. They have no clue how to deal with the end user, how to attract an audience.
Yeah, you put it perfectly. As you put that absolutely perfectly.
The arrogance of the creator has them believing that they're doing something special if they get their book in a preview and a retailer or two, let's say, gambles on it. When that was the only way to get discovered, yeah, you could easily argue that. Now you're just stroking your own ego. I've had some idiots say the reason I don't use a distributor is because nobody would buy our books if they, let's say, saw it on the newsstand, but that's retardation.
You don't need a distributor when you have the infrastructure.
That's what I've been making.
The infrastructure, right?
That's the point I've made.
As soon as you have the infrastructure, you realize, do you know what? There's two middlemen gone.
Yes.
And do you know how much extra profit that puts in the pocket?
Yeah.
If you went through, I don't want to go through a distributor. It works it far better for me to have my own infrastructure, to have control over my product. Now, if comic book shops want to have my Rippaverse books, I'll do a deal for them.
We have a retailer
portal. They have a portal to do that.
Yep.
But going straight to the end user when I got the infrastructure, why wouldn't I do that? I know my audience. I know how to connect to an audience. I have the infrastructure to do that with the YouTube and then the Blaze stuff, and the music stuff, and you have all these different assets that you brought together a different audience. Why the fuck would I say, hey, middleman, can you fuck everything up for me, please?
Please.
Oh, I'll be happy to do so. It'll cost
And
though.
I'll take a lot off the top.
It'll cost you, yeah. But I'll fuck it up for you. That's where it is.
Yeah. But that's a lot that I dealt with. It was like, well, you have to go through the proper channels.
You talked about the retailers. You talked about how if they purchased a certain amount, then maybe they'll get a 1 in 25 variant, a 1 in 100 variant, right? You have them right there.
Yeah.
You know, you have them right there, and the audience, the customer knows. We have 3,000 of the foil cover. So that's it. You know where you are when you've got that. If you don't pick it up, gone.
Yep.
So at least the customer has the direct opportunity to not fuck around going, excuse me, please, local comic book store, did you get a variant? No. Again, it makes it much more palatable for the fucking audience. We have 4 covers. We do 4 covers. We do a fall cover. We do 2 normal covers. And then we also do like a retro cover. That's our sort of thing.
Yeah, throwback. Yeah.
So the audience knows, the customer base knows where they are. They know what they're looking for. They have a selection. We've seen plenty of times people in streams, they want to do a poll. Which one's the best cover? Then you'll still see everyone do, I prefer cover D, or I prefer cover A, because it's the preference. But the customer has the option to go directly for that preference.
Right.
They also know what the variant are, as opposed to you don't know. Oh, Batman 321 came out. Okay, great. I'll take a copy. Did you know that it had all this variant? Oh,
I mean, you're talking about.
Do you have that? Oh no. Yeah. Oh no, I don't have that because it's a one.
Like what the fuck?
Do you know where I can get it? Oh, I don't know. I mean, it depends on who the retailer is that bought them, because So I got to go now to the fucking secondary market, which is now the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th.
Yeah,
so I've now got to go to the 5th fucking level. So there's some scalper can fucking sell me this variant for $80. I'm good. Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah, great industry.
Yeah, it's more phenomenal. That's a great economic system that we got there, man. It's fucking crazy, man. It just doesn't make sense. Well, guys, I go through a lot of history and stuff. So you guys got to have your minds blown if you hadn't seen this video.
And the classic direct market model. Though we do sell to the retailers aren't our primary customers, the readers are. And this is where publishers are going to have to make some real decisions in the coming years, because IDW aren't the only ones dealing with this problem. There are many economically illiterate people that are in high positions in comics, positions they have no business being in. They're totally unqualified, and they have no idea how to measure the market. The more the industry declines, the thinner the money gets. And right now, the industry standard for a floppy is what, $4 or $5? Think about who all has to get paid from the sale of that comic. You got the publisher, they have to get their cut. The distributor has to get their cut, and a retailer has to get theirs. Off of that one comic, many of you don't want to admit it, but even at their peak, very few people were able to actually thrive off of their comics.
How many stories have we heard about even legends of the industry as being flat ass broke?
Well, I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, you just go and Google Steve Jeppy, CEO of Diamond, and I promise you, all you're going to see is about Stephen Jeppy woes, financial problems. I mean, he's doing well. It's always kind of makes me wonder that when somebody's personally doing he does well, millionaire. But everything from years going back to 2009, 2000,
it's been shaking and moving for a very long time, man.
It's the fucking history. Years. It's the history of that.
Yeah, it never. That's what I'm saying. It just was. It wasn't that it worked. It just was. It just was.
Wasn't favorable, and there simply isn't enough money to go around. And I'm talking about the comics, the publishing, not movies, games, or toys. In all honesty, they've been more of a loss leader for people that have adapted the material outside of the comics. It has always been a paper tiger or a bubble at best. Think about the two that dominate this space in Marvel and DC.
All right, there's some stuff. This is where I go through the history, and there's going to be some stuff that nobody seems to want to talk about because we've been blessed or spoiled in thinking that this has been like great. And I promise you guys, financially, let me say this: the financial woes for the American comic book industry did not start yesterday.
No, sir.
It did not start yesterday. It's been going on for a lot longer than you may have thought.
In the late 30s, facilitated by Martin Goodman, Timely Comics was created, and then that became Atlas Comics, and you can see where I'm going with this. They had their share of economic issues, though, from then on through the 50s. It was largely propped up due to Martin Goodman's other business ventures. They always had a parent company. They very well could have went under then, but as you all know, into the 60s, they were revitalized, and Stan Lee played a big role in that. Despite all of that supposed success in the 60s, though, Goodman sold Magazine Management, which was the parent company of Marvel.
So this is the point that I was bringing up. Marvel has had a parent company forever. Was the point that I was bringing up. They have, for the most part, never existed on their own, ever.
to a company that eventually became Cadence Industries. So in the early 70s, Goodman was completely detached from Marvel. They had more economic issues in the 70s, and in the late 70s, they brought in Jim Shooter.
Shout out Jim.
Will about Jim Shooter, but he brought about what is arguably the most successfully economic era of Marvel Comics.
I don't think it's arguable. I don't actually think it's arguable. That's the only thing I would change about this video. I said arguable. I think it's definitively he facilitated the most successful era of Marvel Comics ever. Jim Shooter did.
Publishing. Still, right after they incorporated in 1986, they were under new ownership again after New World Entertainment acquired them. How? Because Cadence Industries went under and was liquidated. New World Entertainment.
Again, this is the 70s, guys. Parent company goes under, right? This has been, I mean, I laid down the history for you, and we're up to the 70s and going into the 80s. Still going under, someone else buys it out, liquidated, over and over, repeat process. And this is, again, one of the big two.
Sold off this recently incorporated entity for $80 million to McAndrews and Forbes. And this is when you started to see a split between properties and characters, as the deal did not include Marvel Productions, which handled TV and movies. As you can see, there became more value in the ideas of these characters as opposed to the publications. Even then, going into the late 90s, Marvel nearly went under and filed for bankruptcy. It took Toy Biz to bail them out, thus becoming the new owners and naming it Marvel Enterprises. And of course, you all know the Disney acquisition in 2009. The point I'm trying to make is that they'd always had economic issues.
Always. There has never not been a time that they didn't have economic issues, is the point that I was bringing up. They had pockets of like success, but they were pockets. That was all that they ever were, was pockets. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. I just laid down the facts for you, and it flew under the radar.
The publications were in some way propped up by other aspects of this business. And those,
by the way, that's a perfect picture that you got there, as in displaying exactly who the breadwinners of that company are in terms of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the condition that they're in right now.
Yeah.
Particularly that one front and center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Merchandise and movies and TV than they did in books being made. DC Comics was a tad different, but there are some similarities in terms of its fate, that is. In the 1930s, Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson launched National Allied Publications. That eventually became Detective Comics. And ironically enough, Wheeler Nicholson was forced out of the company due to what? Economic issues and debt. So by the late 30s, DC was already under new ownership under Detective Comics Incorporated. And by the 1940s, after multiple mergers, it became National Comics Publications. At least they didn't have like another parent company for a while, but they still weren't that profitable. By the late 60s, they were purchased by Kinney National Company. That company then created Warner Media due to shenanigans. And that has been one of the differences between Marvel and DC. Though both having these barely profitable publications, Marvel was directly and constantly sold off to other companies. For DC, it was more so them being under a company that was then sold off.
That was the big differentiation, right? It was Marvel, just as far as its property kept being this issue getting liquidated, this owner. Whereas to DC, once they got under the Kinney, well, that became Warner. They kept shaking and moving. DC remained under that company, but that company, that parent company, just kept shaking and moving and shaking and moving over and over. It happens so often. And I go through some of the history of Warner. I don't think people know how many changes have gone through Warner over the last 40 years. It's been insane.
Warner Communications, as you know, had their financial problems. They became Time Warner in the 90s after merging with Time Incorporated. They had mergers and transfer of ownership with companies like AOL, and eventually they got bought out by AT&T and then almost immediately flipped to Discovery.
And that was a short period of time, guys.
That was a really quick period of
time. That was a quick period. AT&T buys. AT&T said, we can't do shit with this. Someone else take it off of our hands.
He was just caught under all of that shaking and moving. The truth is that comics could barely stand on their own and needed some help from bigger companies. This is how So many of them can master losses. Even the distributors themselves have barely been able to make it profitable. And there's a reason why Diamond at one point owned every comic book distributor. Publishers have been able to see success in pockets. To me, that has less to do with the medium itself and more to do with the illogical economic setup. Too many hands in that cookie jar. Think about it. Only a couple of the major comic book publishers stand alone. Yeah, like Dark Horse, they had a great run, but they're now owned by the Embracer Group. Valiant had its issues, and they've been owned by someone else since the mid-90s. The two companies that exist that prioritize publication overall are Image and Boom Studios, and they don't really have their own IPs, or their biggest driver is they're being in the game of licensing other people's properties. And when that well starts to dry up, you end up like IDW. Am I saying there's no money to be made in comics? Absolutely not. I'm trying to show you that if you want to be both profitable and largely independent, the current model has to be reassessed. Relying on this archaic model only makes sense if you're trying to treat your publication as a loss leader and you have some other big company subsidizing you. The Rippaverse publishing model, or a version of that, is probably more suited for you, and it's going to make more sense for most publishers. That means keeping as much as you can in-house and selling directly to the readers. That's your main customer. If you own a publishing company like me, you understand there's all sorts of staff that have to get paid off of you selling these comic books. Does the direct market take a lot of grunt work from your hands? Sure. But it's basic math. The distributor isn't doing distribution at cost, and of course the retailer isn't. So you're being upcharged by two entities that are trying to make money off of your comic. If they were nonprofits doing it at cost, yeah, maybe you'd be saving money, but that's not what they do, is it? This is the tough challenge that many publishers and creators are going to have to deal with. As more people wake up to this, the comic book industry will totally change, and it's going to look different. And from the creative to the retailers, it is uncertain just who will survive and what role they're going to be playing in the future. It's going to look a lot different. Either way, because this just isn't sustainable.
By the way, it wouldn't even work if there were non-profits. Because non-profits just still function on overheads. So
yeah, they still need to bring in
overhead
money.
Will still
They have
be
to make
passed.
money.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They still have to make money. Correct.
For really, if I can offer any advice to anybody that has aspirations to make it in doing entertainment, it's this: ask questions. Just because everybody does a thing does not mean that this thing is worth doing. It doesn't mean it's the most efficient or effective way to do it. Technology alone has completely changed the game, and some industries are still stuck in doing what may work 50 years ago. And the only reason it hasn't changed is because people never bothered to ask why, and they just continue to follow the status quo. The industry standard could be nonsensical, and what works for you may not work for others. So make it make sense. And if it doesn't, don't do it. Assess everything. Even the price of your product should not be targeting some universally accepted floor or ceiling, for that matter. So ask questions, and just going through the motions just because your economically illiterate peers are doing something, that doesn't make sense. The same people claiming this is the best way to do things are the ones that have facilitated an industry where its greatest creatives are broke. And publishers, they're getting L's like they're going out of style. Look, don't be mad at me. I'm just giving it to you straight.
So, yeah, I mean, long story short, I go through that whole video I did. I'll share it one more time just so people, I know some people that asked for it. But the point is that it was always on faulty ground. It had always been this way. And I think a lot of people got spoiled because they were so big and only two companies really dominated the entire industry that it was working. And my argument is, according to the facts, it really never worked. It just existed.
Yeah.
It just was a thing, right? So what's the mistake that I've seen a lot of young people make, and I don't think that's necessarily unique to comic books, is that they look at how the industry has operated before, and they think they have to replicate that in order to be successful. Where I deviate from that is that that's wrongful, and that's a way to actually ruin your own company economically by trying to replicate what you cannot, because you don't have, I don't know, some billion-dollar corporate entity that owns you, right? You don't have like a parent company or something like that. You don't have those assets and those that branding to even acquire the debt that you would need to keep this charade going and convince a lot of gullible people that, okay, yeah, we didn't make money in the last 10 years, but maybe in fact the year 15 we'll finally start to bring something in. You can't operate like that. So you have to make an adjustment. And that's always been my argument. It's not to simply replicate what I do. It's more of, okay, find out what works, ask questions, and then try to tailor make that experience or tailor make that business model for yourself instead of just saying, well, they do it this way, and therefore I got to do it this way, or it's not successful. That's been a point that I've made. Because if you operate like Marvel and DC have operated, and it's not any shot to them, I'm just saying that's how it's always been. Well, I know, but I'm not trying to be harsh to them. I'm just being honest. It never worked. So even if you were like in a cog, I don't even know if that's what you would call it, but let's say you're in the machine, it was churning you out. You made money off of that machine. It doesn't mean if you just, I don't know, go back, like take a step back and look at it all encompassing that it was a profitable venture. You just made money from it as a creator, maybe in it, but it wasn't a profitable venture. It never really was. The model didn't make sense, and they kept doubling and tripling down, unlike what we've seen with other industries where they said, this doesn't make sense. How about we do something different? Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we have some sort of innovation, and maybe the innovation isn't necessarily with like the art. Maybe the innovation is how you're selling it. Maybe the innovation is how it's being produced. Maybe maybe that's where the innovation is, so you can make this a now profitable or at least a sustainable venture. And I think that's what this game has missed, and that goes top to bottom, from the creators, publishers, to the retailers, distributors. All of these guys have been functioning in this system that has been fucking busted, and it's been busted that way for a long time. As brings up what a lot of people have not bring up. Even if when you're talking about Diamond, there's been a lot of shaking and moving for the last 15 years.
At least.
That's a minimum. 15 years. So even that model hasn't been like a slam dunk. We all have gone through it, right? As either as a buyer, if you're a comic book shop owner, everybody had existed in that system for a very long time. But to say that it worked, according to what? Because it existed? Because everybody else was doing it? Or did it was it actually effective?
But when it's the only game in town, what do you got to compare it with? Nothing.
Nope. That's a fact. So look, I want the best for the industry. I just think that going into the future, this is what I think Western media is going. It's not a bold prediction. I've gone out on a limb. I've said this before. I think that the Western media is both in a spot of uncertainty while also being potentially on the brink of a renaissance. And what I mean by that is that everybody's trying. It's the Wild West, where anybody that wants to be in the game is finding that they have to go through unconventional means in order to see success in it, right? And I believe that if the Western industries or entertainment industries, I know we're trying to make it unique to comics, but if they're going to thrive, it's going to take a lot of people trying things out. There'll be a lot of trial and error. Not everybody's going to see success. But I think people are going to have to get out of being wired in a way that it has to look like it did before when it didn't work for it to be successful. I don't think, and I believe that video where I talk about this is already out, where I said that I don't think that there will ever be a big two again. You may have a big, a small to medium 200. But I don't think there's going to be just $1 billion of assets, not liquefied, but just assets being in control or being controlled by one company. I think it's just going to be a bunch of guys, and they're all thriving in their own individual right. It might not look like, I don't know, dropping 3 blockbuster movies based on your property every year, right? It might not look like that, but it's going to be it's going to be successful. And I think that's just what people are going to have to get used to. It's going to be very small. It's going to be a lot smaller in scale. And I guess the market share is going to be broken up a lot more than as opposed to having, I don't know, 2 fucking companies dominate it like it has been for years. I just don't think that's just the model going forward. That's just me. Maybe you disagree, Ass. I don't know.
Dude, to kind of call back to what we were talking about earlier, you got an industry that when their movie universe was at its peak, where it had a system of having at least 1 end credit scene, normally 2, sometimes 3 end credit scenes, that was the perfect opportunity to even put a fucking quick advert for the comic before you got there. Because if the audiences are waiting for that end credit scene, stick it. The fact that there was never any comics in the fucking cinemas themselves, that comics have come out of places like newsagents, have come out of places like, well, I don't know if they are in 7-Elevens, but you used to be able to go to like petrol stations in the UK and have a comic rack. Or your W.H. Smith and they'll have comic racks. Gone. So the actual visual side of where you could see them, gone. It's now all specialist. So when something's specialist, it becomes niche. When it's niche, it's not in the public eye. And then finally, you had the position where if some kid saw Iron Man, saw Thor at the cinema and said, hey, maybe I will pick up the comic, they'd go there and they'd have Jane Foster or fucking, I can't even remember a fucking name anymore. But yeah, they wouldn't even have those characters anymore.
It wouldn't be like the character.
Because they're all gone. When you can't even coordinate your own fucking universes, your own characters together, like just 2 divisions talking to each other.
Yeah.
And how the fuck are you going to sell it to an end user?
It's almost impossible. And look, what I do, and whether you like anime or manga is irrelevant. What they've done objectively well is that they have I won't say condition. That sounds like almost like manipulative. It's not what it is. It's just they have been able to come up with this, like how their market operates is that one thing sells another. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
The anime sells the manga sells the anime.
Exactly.
Right. And I love that about them. It's to the point to where the core audiences actually get upset when there's like a big deviation. Remember, for so long as we had people gaslight us, acting like we're crazy for expecting some level of accuracy. And they would say that they can't do that because of wide appeal. And then I say, look at anime and manga.
Mm-hmm.
Their fans actually get mad when you change something significantly from one or the other. They have no problem getting ahead, right? If let's say episodes are scheduled to come out, blah blah blah, people are already getting ahead using the manga because the anime is more or less adapting it, and all is good. So tell me why it works for them, but somehow it's just it was unrealistic to expect some level of accuracy from the Western companies if it was so not doable or you needed wide appeal. I don't know, man. I would say, hell, even in the West, manga and anime has got pretty wide of an appeal, wouldn't you say?
Just a soupçon. Smidgen.
Just a little bit?
Un petit peu.
Just a little bit of a wide appeal, despite them having some level of accuracy. So one sells the other, and I think that's important. I think anybody that's trying to do out of print or out of comic adaptations, I think that's your approach. Use it to sell the other, man, and that's the way of the future. Before we get into like some of the other stuff, like super chats and stuff, as I don't know if you heard about this stuff that's going on with oh man, let me just go here because I just find it very interesting. So JD Vance apparently is in the Dungeons and Dragons. For those you don't know, he's the VP of Donald Trump, or vice president or soon to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason, who's director of games over there, has said this in that if Vance has played Pathfinder, he wants him to send his books back. No space for fascist in our game is what he said. Did that sound like something you want your director of games telling customers?
No, it sounds like a dumb cunt. By the way, if you want space fascists, Warhammer 40k,
There
baby.
you go.
cut out the middle word. Just go straight to space fascist.
Space fascist.
Boom.
Yeah. But
it's this. I mean, I've done a video today about the gaming industry, sort of tentatively asking permission if we can just be normal again. But we actually now have developers within the gaming industry criticizing companies, again, more the bigger companies, more the people in power who make these ridiculous decisions to attack their customer bases. Dungeons and Dragons is an absolute fucking joke at the moment. It is possibly, ironically, it's possibly the most racist, sexist, disgusting thing I've ever seen in years, and it's hilarious because it's a bunch of woke people who don't realize how fucking racist there are. There's no interracial marriages anymore or relationships anymore because that's bad. Oh, okay. Read into that as you will. Orcs, of course, are black people. Apparently so. Coded. A white guy told us that.
Yeah.
By the way, FYI. There's the racials are all gone, so everyone's on parity. This race can't be bad because it's coded for this or that, the other. There's now disabled ramps in fucking dungeons. Because that's what leads the charge, of course. God. And I'm not even kidding. Eric. I'm not even fucking kidding either. There's now ramps. There's now disabled ramps for wheelchair users. It's become an absolute fucking joke. That image there is just the epitome of fucking. It's like an AI generic piece of shite, and that is currently Dungeons and Dragons. Can't offend anyone. Can't do anything. And then the CEO just comes out and goes, well, if this guy that voted for Trump played our game, I want my books back. Well, probably Vance has already actually sent his books back because the shit, the fucking dog shit now. So he's probably asked for a refund in all fairness. But yeah, when 53% of the country voted a certain way, which is their prerogative to do. Just like the people who voted the other way, it's their prerogative to do. It's a pretty dumb idea, particularly when something is so close, to try and fuck off that huge, colossal number of your audience. But then again, as they keep saying, in one breath, they'll call you all kind of names under the sun for criticizing the product, for not buying their product. And in the next breath, they'll go, this wasn't made for you. Well, I don't think Dungeons and Dragons is made for 99.9% of people anymore. So I think Vance is going to sleep perfectly well tonight.
Perfectly well? I think he's going to be high.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine.
But just imagine that. You have a guy in a leadership position, right? And that's their position.
Oh, by the way, a video coming next week. 2 Republicans denounce wonderful woke business entrepreneur. One view.
But I just don't get it. I mean, the famous quote, Michael Jordan, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah.
Right? Because he understood that, and that's why
there's no shame in this game.
Yeah,
there's no shame in this. This is a game of signaling. That's what it is. You must always signal to your peers about how fucking woke or whatever, or how inclusive, how DIE, how diverse, how ESG, how much schlong you've had up your whoopsie. It's all about signaling. It's got nothing to do with sales.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with your customers. It's got nothing to do with any sort of customer service. No, it's just purely I'm signaling to my to my peers about how this, that, and the other I am. When you live in a bubble, that's all you do. When you've got no outside sources, when you have no real idea of the outside world, these are the kind of things which start to form.
Yeah.
This is a company that's self-deleting.
I just don't get it. I mean, you got a guy in a leadership position right there, and I saw that someone posted about I can't find it, but there was a tweet going around where they had emailed, I guess, their customer service, or no, it was like they're one of their community managers or something. And of course, they had Zer, him, shim, all that stuff. All the pronouns were in there.
Right. So mentally ill.
Yeah, basically, all that was there. And they had said though, like, hey, this person's views doesn't necessarily represent the company, right, or whatever. And I'm just like, you got a guy in a leadership. Just imagine that. And they are so, that's why I fucking hate politics, man. But they are so fucking like just balls deep in politics that you are at least licensing, or you have direct access, direct influence in one of the major properties, nerd geek culture properties. And you're signaling to your peers for what reason? To basically tell a sector of the population to go fuck themselves.
You know how you spoke earlier about this sort of like this slide, but there's also this kind of renaissance going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, this is a prime example of that. There is an Eric July out there who is seeing what's being done here and going, I'm going to make my own company. I'm going to make my own world, my own universe. I'm going to invest. Because if these companies are so willing to just throw customers to the wind, there is a person out there, some person who's creatively minded, who's proactive. Doesn't matter if they're black, white, male, female. So they know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they voted left or right. They'll still say, I sense an opportunity here.
Yeah.
If their primary business function is making money, if that's what it is, nobody needs to know how I vote. Nobody needs to know who I sleep with. Nobody needs to know any of that. All they need to know is, this is my product and I'm interested in selling it to you. Somebody will do that. Somebody will come in and they'll take away his business. They'll happily, with open arms, take away his business. Because if you're so willing to give it away, somebody's going to be willing enough to take it. You saw an opportunity in the comic book world. You took that opportunity. Look what's happened now.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
Never interrupt your enemies when they're making mistakes.
That's the whole saying, right? He let them do their thing. It's just, if nothing else, it's a lesson, right? For those that do aspire to do great things. It's like a lesson on what not to do, right? Look, everybody's going to have their opinions. They're going to have their positions, right? Whatever. But you have a willing buyer, because that's how he words it. A willing buyer. You're willing to say, hey, I don't like you because of your politics, your personal politics, which has nothing to do with what you're creating. Therefore, you can't have access to, or you shouldn't have access. Send this shit back. Your money is no good to us. That to me is fucking crazy. As a business owner, that's absolutely fucking nuts to me. That anybody would even utter that. You have someone in there. Imagine how, again, balls deep you got to be in this. This is a director. There's someone in a leadership position.
Yeah, but it's also somebody who's complete and utterly out of touch with people.
Clearly.
And that's the main thing. They've got themselves to a position. They've had a brand. They've built up the brand, made themselves a lot of money. Okay, and then because they made themselves a lot of money, they go into a different level of social climb. They go into a different category of people. They lose touch with their audience. They lose touch with why they made this in the first place. Who is meant to appeal to the fun elements of it. They insert politics into it, and as soon as you insert politics into it, it all goes wrong. I don't care if you voted for fucking Adolf Hitler. Well, I probably would actually, but I don't care. I wouldn't care if you voted for Kamala. But what I would care about, I mean, first of all, I shouldn't even know.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
shouldn't
point.
even know.
That's a good point.
I'm not just interested in what the product that you're doing, and that it's appealing to myself, and not in a political way. I don't need my political.
We've said that time and time again. It's not about trying to do the opposite end of the same shit. That's not what this is.
I just want I want some good characters. I want some good stories. I want some interesting universe. I want something to invest my escapism in.
Right.
And there's the gaming industry's proven it. The TV industry, the movie industry, tabletop, because Wizards of the Coast and all that kind of. They've all shown that they've now become all political and ideologically minded, and it is infested their companies, and all it's going to lead to is a rise of independence. And you just never know who's gonna rise above. I reckon 99.9% of people wouldn't have had any clue where you would be after the start of the Rippaverse. They might be like, I might have one good book, you might have two good books, and then it'll be steady away. What? They had no clue.
Right.
And then look what's happened there. All it takes is somebody to do the same in a different industry. Somebody to make an independent film that goes crazy. Somebody to make a TV series that completely redefines how we're looking at, entertainment, procedural, whatever it may be. That's all it takes. And suddenly the paradigm starts to shift when people realize where the money's going. That's why you think now we're even having Western developers in the gaming industry saying, hey, I'm putting up a poll, which they did, the guys from the CEO from Lords of the Fallen, going forward in a fantasy game, what do you want to see? Body type 1, body type 2, male or female? None of the above. Male and female dominated. Of course it did. Because the weirdos are a fraction, but unfortunately they have such
very
power.
Small.
But when you reconnect, but that is a reconnection to your actual audience.
Right.
And that just shows what the actual audience is looking for. So please keep fucking sticking the knife in. Keep shooting yourself in the foot. Keep doing all these self-inflicted wounds. It's going to work out real good for you. Honestly, keep going.
Speaking of disasters, before we go to super chats, hear about this hilarious bit. It was all a joke.
Yeah, it was a clone.
Yeah,
it was a clone of Batman. Do you like us now? No, fuck off.
Yep. So Rocksteady reveals Arkham Batman isn't dead in Suicide Squad. So for you guys that don't know, they showed off some like 2D thing where basically for the ending of this bullshit, in that all the members that they fought were clones. So it's just jokes, bro. So I guess the Arkham.
So when Captain Boomerang got his cock out and pissed on the Flash, it's okay because it's just a clone.
Yeah, it's just a clone, man. It's just
when Harley Quinn executed a tied up Batman with Kevin Conroy in what was his last voiceover work before he sadly passed away. It's just lols.
Yeah, just jokes, bro. Nothing to worry about there. Yeah. So I don't quite understand the move there. Obviously, this was something that seems to be done retroactively.
Of course, it is. This was never planned.
I don't think they'll admit that. I think they'll try to play the whole subversive shit. But I really do believe that this was something that they did retroactively. Now I don't know if that means that it's because they want to continue with the Arkham verse, right? And
they are working on another Batman title.
That's true. So that must play into that for sure. But also this the general response. That was a terrible move. Just terrible idea for a game. It was never going to land well.
I don't know about you. As soon as they announced this, I said this was a fucking terrible idea.
Yeah.
Nobody wants, particularly somebody like Harley Quinn, who's now just a fucking lolcal of a character. Nobody wants to go around killing their fucking heroes.
Yeah, it's a stupid idea.
Of course it's a stupid, but it's a stupid idea made by people who detest heroes.
Right.
So it makes sense from their perspective because they're the fucking villains. They don't care about gaming. You could say, but could have been an interesting idea. Sometimes just double think. Now, what could have been really interesting is if they did a Justice League game where they sent the different heroes after specific villains, which were kind of catered towards their power sets. That could have been interesting, expanding on the Arkham series by bringing in the Justice League. But nobody wants to see fucking Harley dumb bin Quinn and a fart scratch and sniff comic book killing off Kevin Conroy's fucking Batman in an execution where his hands are tied behind his back. It's one of the most disgusting, good luck.
It's just illogical, man. But they did it, and now they're having to deal with the consequences. But it'll be interesting to see what just the future of Rocksteady. I mean,
it's a company that now has to prove itself to its audience.
Yeah, which it used to be a layup company.
Yeah.
We've had those like CD Projekt Red was as well, where they went from, hey, if they drop it, I'm all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, well, you're gonna have to convince me. You have to convince me. I think it's just how it is these days, and it's just. I think we'll be looking back at the last 5 to maybe 8 years of just some decisions being made with major properties that were just stupid, for lack of better terms, just dumb.
Dude, this year, 2 properties have already gone into the public domain.
Yeah.
Popeye and Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Now, you think as somebody who's creatively minded that can say, do you know what we're really missing right now? Good science fiction.
Do
you know what character is now in public domain? Buck Rogers. This is going to be in what, few years time, less than 10 years, Superman's going public domain. Batman's going public domain.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, man. I just died. It's interesting. It is interesting.
Or die.
That's been the theme of the show today. Okay, guys, let's get into some of these super chats. By the way, I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We've been having a great time as we always do. As always, Graph Web as well just has to remind us and lets us know that you got to cancel Disney Plus, and you got it. You got it.
Oh, we never even discussed, by the way, Daredevil trailer. Do you see that?
I saw it before the stream. It looks solid.
Mm.
Yeah, we did not get a chance to discuss that, but it looks solid. Is that where they've been putting all their money?
Well, we know that they filmed 9 episodes and then they
said, "Fuck this! Like, go back to the drawing board." Yes, that did happen.
They brought Karen back and Foggy back, and because they weren't even in it.
Yeah,
they made some severe. I think they got rid of the stupid fucking god awful yellow costume as well, yellow and red costume. They reverted it back. Yeah, interesting stuff. It was a solid trailer.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It was solid. Archangel Ted with a 5 says some guy fell off harder than Black Widow in Avengers Endgame, and he's the sound a chicken makes.
Yeah, is that?
I think that's the guy you were talking about.
Yeah, is that the guy? I have no idea who that is.
Republicans, even though I've never voted for a Republican, and you don't even live in the goddamn country. So very, very impressive.
No, but in all fairness to him, I do live in the UK, but I did vote Trump. I didn't have to bring any ID.
Yeah, that's great.
I just sent in a
that's the end
letter.
thing. You can just do that anyway. So I respect it. HK bass player says classic cover gang. Talking about those cover B. Yara too. Shout out. Let's fucking go, he says. Creative Welshman with a 30 says people don't understand the importance of having a job and routine. They think doing nothing all day is great, but it isn't. And it'll lead to onset depression and general lack of motivation. Yeah, complacency, general complacency too, right? I've had the blessing of my closest buddies have been very ambitious people, right? And accomplished, right? And I've been around that. So I've always wanted to thrive and be great as well. But yeah, having a routine and kind of, getting your bearings under and keeping your bearings under, it can be challenging, but it's also motivating as well. So I can for sure feel you on that. We have Steve Anthony Peach with a 5 say, hey, ass, hey, Ripper. New Year, hey, ass, happy you.
Hey.
Got a good last. Wedding bells anytime. Love Megatron. Says Hell Saskas and Yara too. Shout out Saskas and shout out Yara too. Doing well. We have Mark, 13 months. Shout out to you. Garfield Bizarre says with 21 months. Shout out to the Saskas. Looking forward to both Yara 2 and Blood Ruth. Absolutely. You're gonna love both of them. Big Gil with a 10. 1, what do you do when you start to overthink things when it comes to Rippaverse? Because I do that with my own universe on occasion. And 2, have you ever thought about fan casting your characters? Well, we did have a well, I know what you mean. I was just going to mention as far as just like we did have that be canonized thing, which is really, really cool. But as far, I've never thought about the latter, but the former, look, I come from the music industry, okay, or business, let's say that. And one thing that I've learned is that chasing perfection is one of the worst things you can fucking do. And it'll muddy a song up. You could you're trying to get it so polished, you're making all these adjustments. And I approach the Rippaverse the same way. Like, right, if I have an idea that I think is just absolutely asshole, I'll just scrap it. I just won't follow through with it. But I also don't overthink it, right? And I think that's the balance as well. I'm not going to try to be like, okay, well, this is something that's not landing well. I can't make it make sense. Therefore, I'm going to try to force this, force the issue. No, that's not my approach. So if I find myself like overthinking something, I probably don't have a good idea or idea that I can sell myself and I believe in. And so I'll just scrap it all together. That's just my approach. Won't try to force the issue, won't try to chase perfection, just absolute perfection. You want to do the best job, but I think the best part of doing the best job is understanding that, look, man, the idea is the idea. Is it good or is it not? And not, do what I've heard so many people overproduced bands, man, where they just chasing perfection. Oh, we got to change this, we got to change that, instead of going in. It's like, oh man, I think it was fine before you had to do 25 takes. You know what I'm saying? Mark with a 5. Rose says this could trigger a chain reaction that collapses the mainstream comic book industry. How will you be affected if it happened? If you're talking about to the mainstream distribution, only way that I'll be affected is perhaps some independents will want to use Rippaverse.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might get more business.
That's it. That's about it. But like generally speaking, like it doesn't. We don't go through those traditional means at all. Like
it won't collapse the mainstream industry anyway because Diamond aren't even distributing DC
not
Marvel,
anymore.
so.
Yeah, not any. The only chain that it could, like, as far as like, again, there are major publishers that were still using. That are still using Diamond, but they'll figure it out. It may not be the most efficient way, but they'll figure it out. As far as me though, we go unaffected negatively. there can only be positive that will come from up. And like I said, maybe there is a publisher or that wants to use Rippaverse in some capacity, and maybe it is just to distribute directly to customers or something, or maybe it's publishing. Hell, who knows? Comics Dad, what's up? Love to see you. It says change needs to happen. Lead the change. Lead change. Comics Dad, you got it. Yeah, I'm giving it a shot, man. I'm doing everything that I can for sure. Yes, it's a lot of trial and a lot of error. I say this is not an easy business. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you do that you don't do again. You know what I mean? Because it just didn't work. And there's going to be some things you hit, and you want to make sure you're doing more of it. The Beast became a new member, also gifting 5 subs. Shout out. Comics Dad also becoming a member. Big shout out. Appreciate that. And the super chat, homie. Why are they doing a Supergirl movie this early? Says Chris. I'm not sure what's going on with James Gunn. I can't speak to the plan there because I don't know. We went through it like on an episode maybe a while back. We went through the entire slate, and interesting. It's gonna have to set the tone with Superman though. Whatever.
Remember, it was meant to be Superman, The Authority, Batman. That was the first 3. Now it's Superman, Supergirl.
It's gonna be interesting. It is going to be interesting. Saw an Alpha Court 2 ad on Facebook today. Are you holding out on us? I don't know what you mean. I mean, maybe as far as our 2025 slate, but yeah, we're Alpha Court 2 is it's not up yet. It's getting there. Garfield's Bizarre Adventure with a 5 said, at the peak, even if people who went to see the MCU fans wanted to check out the comics were busy promoting the DEI replacement. That's the point that Az brought up as well. It's like you would have got a version of the character that was not the one that you just saw off screen. Is there a Whataburger HEB in Flores Park? Maybe an Inspired with a 2. Maybe an Inspired. Yes, it's very Texas to have both of those. Joker's disciple with a 5 says sub Rip and the fucking pronoun. Says all the big comic people know who both of you are. They just aren't allowed to publicly speak about y'all. Well, I know a lot of folks. I know in my space, I've had those DMs coming from people that have been involved in the industry. Oh man, I agree with you type of stuff. I've dealt with them. Some I've hired, but I'm in a position now. But when I used to do videos, I used to give people that, man, we know what's going on. If you looked at my background and I gave some of that stuff away, you see, I had these random signed prints and shit by these guys who would just send me shit and tell me how much they agree with everything I said, but couldn't say it. But yeah, they're very familiar with, I'd imagine a lot of these guys are very familiar with us. Larry with a 2 says, great episode, by the way. Shout out, your lying ass. Shout out to you as well, man. Kelly off with a 10 says, selling lemonade roadside is the model that works. Cover your costs and sell in volume for profit that buyers can afford. Comics grew fat on premium California lemons and thought everyone wanted that. Yeah, it was a model that just didn't work. It never worked, but it kept being utilized. Ivan with a 5 says that Harley Quinn fart book actually managed to shock me. Says, and here I thought DC couldn't go any lower. On that note, I'm so tired of Harley Quinn.
And yeah, here we are. Harley Quinn is a lolcow character. They're an absolute joke of a character. It's unbelievable how they have annihilated her.
Mr. Reese with a 2 says, forgot to mention, got the Deborah art book as well. Well, shout out to you for getting the art of Deborah Creed. Garfield's Bizarre Adventure with a 5 is very thoughtful of the evil necromancer to make sure his evil there is wheelchair accessible. Yes,
he's evil, but he's not a monster.
He's not a bigot, man. Not a bigot. Samurai Smack with a 20 says, hey, you know what is a good idea? Telling the vice president of the incoming cabinet and all the supporters to return their books and call them fascists. Fantastic. They also got the majority vote, and you work in a niche industry, by the way. Well, that would force them to have to understand or learn economics.
He's got his money. He doesn't care. You're a
He's
little
contractor,
person.
salary.
We're just the little people.
Yep.
We're uneducated. We need to be learned.
Yep. Jokes aside, what a five said. We ever hear Eric say in an argument, if you don't like my libertarian politics, don't buy my book. We know he's gonna replace that. Yeah, it'll be the Rock Steady Eric clone for sure that had said that.
He'll be wrapped in rope, and I'll have the. It was the caretaker.
Yep. Oh man. Larry Park with a 5 says, laughing about the irony of wheelchair ramps in D&D, but I still can't get proper care because of a pre-existing condition. Priorities much, says Larry Parker. Yeah, these aren't serious people. Shout out Larry, by the way. Josh Kelsey with a 20. No message there. Just doesn't say anything. Fallout creator recently blamed gamers for failure. I haven't seen that, but it doesn't surprise me that they start blaming the gamers.
Technically, you could say technically they're right because the gamers didn't buy their dog shit.
Yeah.
So they could say, well, it's your fault because you didn't buy it. Well, technically, because the game's success is built off the sales. But If your game's dog shit, then how do you expect anyone to buy it? But yeah, keep blaming customers. It's working out really good. It's driving people to your company in their millions. Oh no, you're failing miserably, and you're a fucking retard. Gotcha.
Oh man, and having nobody. The Hate Manga said with a 2 yo ribbon ass Floridian here. Look forward to MegaCon. I will be seeing you there. Team's actually working on official video that'll be going out. Yeah, gonna be fun time. Really excited. We'll see you guys there. All of our friends will be there as well. So come holla. All right. That I think, the last one. Yeah, that wrapped it up. Awesome. It's been a fantastic show. Az, what you got coming up, man, these next few days?
I have a video out today.
Let's go.
My second video in 2 months or something. I don't know. But I got a video out today as my voice gets a little bit better and better. My fingers crossed by next week, voice will be back up to full power, which means I can start doing the voiceover work for the big Dragon Age video that I'm working on. Sunday afternoon tea with Az. I have finally watched Transformers 1. I'll probably have a bit of a chat about that. A lot of people have been asking me about my opinion on Transformers 1. So I'll probably have a chit chat about that. Sunday fun day. Maybe. Depends on where I am on Sunday. to be disclosed. Yeah. I could be somewhere on Sunday. I don't know. And then I think Real BBC this Tuesday, Gary's channel, Graham Nolan.
Oh, nice.
Is going to be on there, and Ripper and Silverback next Wednesday on this channel.
Yep.
Well, not this channel, my channel.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought you meant by
channel.
Yeah, your channel. Yes, gonna be a fun time there. We'll see you guys next week over there. As far as me, don't anticipate any streams up until Monday, which we'll have a closeout stream for sure. We had a lot of fun. That last closeout stream that we did, or the launch stream that we did for Yairo was an absolute blast. We'll be streaming on Rippaverse a lot more, Rippaverse's channel. So come out at us over there. And what else? That's about it for me. Go get Yaira, go get Bloodroot. This is your last week. Some of these items are going to start selling out, so go make sure you go grab those. And be on the lookout for some more announcements. January fun. We're only officially halfway through, just about. Got some other stuff up our sleeve, man. We got a big year for us this year. We appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving us. But yeah, fun's really just getting started. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. As mentioned, next week we will be on his channel. I'm sure there'll be something crazy that'll happen that'll give us a lot of fun because something always is going down.
Well, this is such a quiet industry.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm sure there will be some fun stuff, especially because inauguration is going to be the same day we close out Blood Ruth, which I was not on purpose. It just kind of happened. So that'll be very fun because I'm pretty sure there will be some meltdowns, and they'll give us some material going into Wednesday because some people are going to feel very upset about Orange Guy becoming president for some reason, and fascism and racism and misogyny.
Yeah,
all right, guys.
It's like a democratically elected president.
Works that way because of reasons.
Yeah, I think Santa should have really this last year given people a bunch of fucking dictionaries, so they can actually look up the words that they're saying to discover what they actually mean.
Oh, that's
I don't think they understand what they mean.
Too much work, ass. Too much work for them to do. Right. All right, guys. I'm gonna get up out of here. We'll see you next week on Ripping the Silverback. Enjoy your day, your night, whatever time it is. Have some fun, and please go get Yara 2 and Blood Ruth #1. We will see you guys next time. Peace out.